Hello, everyone. This is Lukman Rafiq here, and I'm the tutor for this paper F9 Financial Management, which is now known as paper FM. We are going to start off this introductory session of the paper Financial Management, which is paper F5. Before we proceed, I'm going to share with you people a brief background about myself. So myself, Lukman Rafiq. I have been in teaching profession for more than 12 years now, and I have been teaching various qualifications, including ACCA, ICAW, ICAP, which is the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan, and the CIMA UK. So these are the various qualifications that I have been teaching. And the areas of expertise, the areas which I have been teaching include the performance management, financial reporting, audit, and the financial management. Furthermore, I have conducted the Practice to Pass webinar for ACCA on 7 to 8 occasions for the paper financial management and the auditing. And I've also conducted a few webinars for ACCA on the paper taxation. So that's what my brief background is. So what we are actually going to do is we are going to start discussing about this paper financial management. Now, I have in front of me the syllabus for September 2020 and June 2021. So it's one of the recent syllabus that has been updated by the ACCA. What I shall be discussing is I'll be discussing about this whole paper, this whole concept of financial management and how the syllabus is structured. So before I move forward, there is actually a relational diagram which is given to you people about this paper F9 financial management. And before going on to this relational diagram, I would like to have some discussion about the concept of financial management with you people. And once we have got some discussion about the financial management, so I would then refer to the various aspects of the syllabus. First of all, when we talk about the concept of financial management, so you need to understand that what exactly does the financial management actually involves. So when we talk about the concept of financial management, so this financial management actually means, in simple terms, it's actually managing your finances. It's simple terms, it's actually managing your finances. And when we talk about managing our finances, so there are various aspects to managing your finances. And what exactly are those aspects? That is, number one of them is, as an organization, how exactly are you going to raise the finance? That's the first thing that you need to understand as an organization. That how exactly are you going to raise the finance? What exactly is going to be the utilization of your finance? When we talk about the utilization of the finance, so it could actually be your investment, it could actually be your expenditures, it could actually be your savings, etc., etc. So that could be the multiple things, which is how exactly are you going to raise finance and what would be the utilization of the finances that you would have as an organization. Furthermore, in case if there are any specific risks which are attached to obtaining finance, so how exactly are you actually going to manage those risks, etc., etc. These are the multiple things that we actually consider whenever we discuss about the concept of financial management. So it's simply, if you take yourself as an individual person, so you plan in your life that how exactly are you going to generate the finance. So when you plan in your life that how exactly are you going to generate your finance, so you actually go for a job or you actually go for a business, etc., etc., or you may apply to the bank for a loan, or you may actually contact your relatives, your friends, etc., etc. So that's actually how you plan that where exactly am I going to raise, where exactly am I going to generate my finances from. Then the next thing what actually happens is, once you have got the finances, so what you do is that you plan out that where exactly am I going to be living, what exactly is going to be the house, which I'm going to be living into, what are going to be the schools in which my kids would be studying, what are going to be the groceries that I would be doing, and at the same time, how much dine out would I be doing. So this is how you generally manage your own finances. If I have to invest, would I be investing in a car? If I have to invest, would I be investing in a house? Or would I actually be making an investment into, let's say, depositing the money into the bank or some housing scheme, etc., etc. So you do take multiple types of decisions with respect to your individual life. And similarly, what happens is that at times you do face risk. Like for example, if you have got, let's say, $2 million, so you would obviously be planning out that how exactly are you going to be utilizing this $2 million. Maybe you invest $2 million in X business, some, let's say, 20% in X business. Let's say you invest 30% in Y business. Let's say you invest 50% in Z business, etc., etc. That's how you actually probably going to be managing your risk, that you would be investing into X, Y, Z businesses, so that you continue to actually protect yourself from the downside movement of one specific investment. So when we talk about the concept of financial management, just think about financial management as something of a technique or a strategy where you actually plan, where you actually decide how exactly are you going to manage your finances. I'm going to discuss it further when I'll be discussing the syllabus of this F9. So before I go on discussing the syllabus of F9, I would actually be discussing about the relational diagrams that are available for this F9. So the prior or the brought forward knowledge that is required is what you have studied at the MA, which is more commonly known as the F2 syllabus. Now, what is that brought forward knowledge? So I'm going to discuss when I'll come on to the syllabus areas. And if you actually look at to the syllabus areas of this specific paper, so you would actually come across these things. And there is actually the examiner, what they have done is they have actually shown to you the connection, what exactly are the connections of these specific syllabus areas are. So if I talk about these syllabus areas in general, and then I'm going to go into the details of the syllabus areas. So let me discuss about the general concept of what these syllabus areas actually demonstrate. Now let's try to discuss, let's try to have an understanding. First of all, you've got one of the areas which is about the financial management function. And what exactly is this financial management function? This financial management function is actually going to explain to you that what exactly is the purpose, what exactly do we mean by this financial management, and how do organizations manage their finance, what departments actually manage their finances, etc., etc., etc. So these are the things that are actually going to be discussed in this specific area, which is the financial management function. The next thing that we shall be discussing is the financial management environment. And what exactly do we mean by the financial management environment? So that actually means that what is the overall environment where the financial management could be done, like the operating environment where the funds would be available, like where the equity could be raised, where the debt could be raised, etc., etc. So these are various things that we are going to discuss when we'll be discussing this area. The next thing is, if you could actually look at these 4 or 5 syllabus areas, which is working capital management, investment appraisal, business finance, risk management, business valuation. So what I shall be doing is, I shall be discussing each one of them one by one. I shall be discussing each one of them one by one first, and then I'll move on to the other areas, which is section A and section B of the syllabus. Now, so let's start discussing about this specific thing, which is working capital management. Now, when we talk about the concept of working capital management, so let's try to understand that what exactly the working capital management is all about. Firstly, if I could have a brief contribution from you people, that what exactly do you think about the working capital? What exactly is working capital? Can somebody please assist me? Can somebody please guide me? What do you think working capital means? Yeah. Can I have some suggestion from you people that what exactly working capital is all about, please? Yeah, anyone, please? Okay, yeah, sure. Go ahead. You can answer in the chat window, or you can answer in the question and answer window also. So what exactly is working capital? Okay, I can unmute you people also. So in case if you wish to speak up, you can speak up also. Okay, so when we talk about the concept of working capital, we have got one of the contribution from one of the students. He says current assets less the current liabilities. Okay, so it's actually the current assets less the current liability. That's what the working capital is. Okay, we have got one more suggestion, which is capital used for day-to-day operations. Okay, that's important, which is the capital used for day-to-day operations. Capital used for day-to-day operations. Okay, now when we talk about the working capital, so the current assets less current liability, that's what the working capital definition is actually. And when we talk about the concept of current assets, so a lot of things actually come into the current assets. The current assets include your inventory. The current assets include your trade receivables. The current assets include your cash. The current assets would actually include your other prepayments and etc., etc., etc. So I would just mention these 3-4 things with respect to the current assets. When we talk about the current liabilities, so you've got the trade payables, you've got the bank OD, you've got the other short-term loans, etc., etc. These are actually considered to be your current liabilities. So that's what a general idea of what the current liabilities are. Now, when I talk about the concept of working capital, so the student who has commented that it's capital used for day-to-day operations, you're very right. It's something that's used for day-to-day operations. It's something that's needed for day-to-day operations. Now, I'm going to try to explain to you that think about a company which has actually invested heavily into the machinery. Think about a company which has invested heavily into the machinery. Now, if you as a company have invested heavily into the machinery, now what actually you need with respect to the machinery is that you need to purchase material which you could utilize for the production of goods. You need labor to whom you have to pay wages. You need other, let's say, you need to pay for the electricity. You need to pay for the other, etc., etc. expenses if you wish to operate this specific machine. So maybe possible you have invested, let's say, $2 million, $3 million into the machinery. But in order to ensure that this machinery generates money for you people, you need to manufacture the product from this machinery. And if you have to manufacture the product from this machinery, so that would actually mean that you have to buy the material, you have to pay to the labor, you have to pay for the expenses like electricity, like other utilities, or maybe you have to pay for other XYZ expenditure, which is a routine day-to-day expenditure. So you have to pay for it. So once you pay for it, then you would actually be able to produce something. And when you would be able to produce something, so you will be able to sell. So when we talk about the concept of working capital, the working capital actually means the amount which is needed for day-to-day operations, the amount which is needed for running the business. So from the organization's perspective, what you actually have to do is that you have to purchase your inventory. The inventories are purchased. And when the inventories are purchased, usually it's the raw material which is purchased. And then what you do is that you incur the conversion cost. What do we mean by conversion cost? So that is actually labor plus overhead. You incur the conversion cost and then you end up getting the finished goods. Once you have the finished goods, you actually sell them, and this is actually converted into the receivables. And then what happens is that once your receivable actually pays you cash, so there what happens is that your cash is actually recovered. Now, the problem that actually arises is if you are a manufacturing organization and if you have invested into the machine is not going to start generating revenue from day one. The machine is going to take some time. Maybe possible you purchase raw material worth, let's say, $200,000, and your raw material stood in your warehouse for, let's say, 5 days. It took you, let's say, another 15 days to convert these raw material into the finished goods. And while converting these raw material into the finished good, it took you $300,000 more to be invested into the inventory. And when 200,000 raw material was purchased, $300,000 inventory was purchased. So resultingly, it was $500,000. That was the conversion cost. That was the total cost that was incurred in the inventory. And once you have converted this inventory into the finished good, it took you 10 days to make a sale. And once you made the sale, so your customer actually took 25 more days to pay cash to you. So now let's try to understand. It's 5 days plus 15 days plus 10 days plus 25 days. If you add up all of them, you would stand up at what? You would stand up at 55 days. So that means from the start of the operation, it took you 55 days to recover the cash. Now, what do we mean by these 55 days? These 55 days would actually means that you have to pay for your factory's rent for the 55 days. You have to pay for the salary for the 55 days. You have to pay for the utilities for the 55 days. You have to incur day-to-day other expenses for the 55 days. And then you would actually be able to recover the cash. Now, assume that your daily expense, is, let's say, $10,000. So if your daily expense is $10,000, so that means your cash flow cycle requires you to have $550,000 available to you, and then you will be able to meet the entire cycle, which is to purchase the raw material and incur the conversion cost, then wait for 10 more days for the finished goods to be converted into the sale, then wait for another 25 days for the sale to be realized, to be converted into the cash. So that means for the 55 days, you would have to invest the money from your own pocket. And this 55 days operational cost that you would be incurring, this is actually going to be termed as your business's working capital requirement. So when we talk about the concept of working capital, so what exactly do we mean by working capital? The working capital actually means it's the expenditure. The working capital actually means it's the cost, it's the cash that you have to spend in order to ensure that your business continues to meet its day-to-day expenses. That's what the concept of working capital is all about. So when we shall be discussing the working capital management, what we would be discussing is that how should an entity ensure. We would first be understanding that what is working capital. Secondly, we would be understanding that why is it important to manage this working capital. Thirdly, we would be discussing that what is included in the working capital, and then, like, for example, receivable, for example, the accounts payable, for example, inventories and cash. So we would be discussing about the strategies for each one of them. Like, for example, how do we ensure that cash is recovered quickly from the receivables? We would be discussing these various strategies And those strategies could be that if I talk about the receivable, that how to recover quickly and completely from them. So we would be discussing these strategies. Your strategies could actually be maybe giving them discounts, maybe setting credit limits, etc., etc. There could be multiple things which you could do in order to ensure that you are able to recover the complete amount and on the timely basis from your customers. The next thing could be you have got your suppliers, and it's actually going to be how to ensure that we are able to get the most favorable terms from supplier. Because you see, every business, what it does is whenever it purchases anything, it wishes to purchase that thing on credit. It wishes to avail the discounts on purchases. It wishes to pay as late as possible. So that's what every business tries to do, because that actually helps you manage your cash flows better. So we shall be discussing the strategies that how do we actually ensure that we are able to manage our suppliers well. Then there are actually going to be the things like inventory management, that how do we ensure that our inventory quantities are managed? How do we ensure that the inventory does not get obsolete? So the obsolescence is handled, outdatation is handled, the holding cost is minimized, etc., etc. These are the various things that we shall be discussing when we'll be discussing about the working capital management, because all of these things actually constitute working capital. And lastly, we'll be discussing about the cash, whether we should deposit it, whether we should hold it back, or etc., etc. So these are the various things that we shall be discussing when we will be discussing about the working capital management. Now let's move a bit forward. So what we have done is we have discussed about this, that it's actually about the nature elements, the management of inventories, account receivable, etc., etc. Additionally, lastly, we would also be discussing about the funding strategies of these working capital. Should we actually fund this working capital through a loan? What sort of loan that working capital financing should be? Should it be a short-term loan? Should it be a long-term loan? What sort of loan should we actually go for? So these are the various things that you would have to actually focus on. Now, so anyone has any questions with respect to the working capital management? Yeah, anyone? Am I clear to you people? Are you people able to understand the exact concept of this working capital management? Okay, good enough. So let's move a bit forward. So one of the areas when it comes to this this F9 is the working capital management. Now let's move a bit forward and let's try to discuss further. So what exactly is the next area, which is the investment appraisal? When we talk about the F2 syllabus, we already study the capital budgeting. And when we do study the capital budgeting, we also study the various techniques of investment appraisal like NPV, like IRR, the payback, various techniques. This is what we have already studied at the F2 level. But what is actually going to happen is there are going to be the additional aspects, which is incorporation of the inflation, which is the incorporation of the taxation impact while performing the NPV calculation. Furthermore, what you would have to do is that you would have to incorporate the risk and uncertainty that we face while taking any specific investment decision. Now, what exactly do you mean by the concept of managing the risk? So let me actually explain to you that whenever you are making an investment, let's say you are setting up a factory and that factory is going to manufacture, let's say, surgical mask. Now, because right now, with respect to the COVID-19, every single organization, what it is trying to do is that it is trying to engage into the business of surgical masks, into the business of sanitizers, etc., etc. Now, so what is actually happening is that one of the risks that you are actually facing is that maybe your license may get cancelled, may be possible once the factory is up and running. Then what could probably happen is that the COVID-19 is over and the people are not as much cautious as they are right now, because you see, presently the media is operating and the only issue that the media worldwide has is COVID-19, because that's the only issue that is left right now, because everybody understands that repayments of loan, terrorism, etc., that has now actually gone that has now gone away right now, and it's only one single issue, that's COVID-19. So for example, if the COVID-19 ends, inshallah, and ultimately you set up the factory for the sanitizers and surgical masks, and the people are not that much cautious as they are right now, and there are many competitors that ultimately end up with the production of the sanitizers and the surgical mask, and in case if the margins go down, so what exactly are you going to do as an entity? So whenever we are planning, it's always important that we incorporate the effect of the various risks that we are facing, that the various things which might actually happen with respect to our investment decision. So we need to ensure that we do take those things into consideration. So that's an important thing that you have to consider. Now, so basically when we'll be discussing about the investment appraisal, so as I mentioned to you, that this is going to be an additional area which we shall be covering, which is incorporating the effect of risk, incorporating the effect of uncertainty. That's what we will actually be doing. Now let's move a bit forward and let's try to understand further. The next thing that is there is, this is specific investment decisions, lease or buy, asset replacement, and capital rationing. Now try to understand. I'm going to explain each one of them one by one. One of them is, it says lease or buy. When we talk about the concept of lease or buy, so remember that if in case if you wish to purchase an asset, you have got a choice. Either you can go for the bank financing, or let's say you can enter into the leasing concept, or you can actually buy it outright. So it's actually one of those decisions that you could actually take. So what we shall be doing is, because it's investment appraisal, it's something that we do know that basically we need an asset. We need to invest in XYZ thing. Let's say whether that be equipment, whether that be machinery, whether that be a building, etc., etc. So uh, would you actually be leasing it, or would you actually be buying it outright? How much money to use, how much money not to use, etc. So these are the things that you actually have to consider. The second thing that you have to consider is basically the asset replacement cycle. Now, what exactly do you mean by this asset replacement cycle? So let me try to explain to you that the concept of asset replacement is that whether you would be replacing the asset, because you see, there are few assets which you use on a regular basis and they've got a limited life. For example, there is an asset, a machinery or an equipment, which has a life of 5 years. But you have seen that if we don't replace it in 3 years, then the maintenance cost in the year 4 and year 5 goes up. So if the maintenance cost in year 4 and year 5 goes up, then you would rather reconsider whether I should keep on replacing this asset in year 3 and fetch a higher residual value, or maybe I sell it in year 4, or maybe I sell it at the end of year 5, because then you would have to do a comparison. Then you would have to actually do a comparison between what's more cheaper, what's cheaper, whether it's cheaper to replace it in 3 years, whether it's cheaper to replace it in 4 years, or whether it's cheaper to replace it in 5 years. That's something of a decision that you would have to take. And that's what we are going to discuss when we shall be discussing this specific specific thing like the asset replacement cycle. Now, let's move a bit forward and let's try to discuss further. So the next thing that you actually need to understand is that there are other aspects. So that's what the investment appraisal is. I'm going to explain to you capital rationing later, and not getting into this capital rationing right now because it's something that you might find a bit difficult to understand right now. So anyways, let's move a bit forward and let's try to discuss further. The next area that is actually going to be examined is the business finance. You see, every specific business needs finance. Every specific business needs finance. And when you are actually raising finance, there are two major sources that we can go for. One of them is equity and the other one of them is debt. So would you be raising the finance using equity, or would you be raising the finance using the debt? So that's actually a question mark. That's actually a question mark, that whether you would be raising the finance using equity or whether you would be raising the finance using the debt. When we try to discuss this, so basically you have to actually consider various factors, various aspects, that whether I should go for equity finance or whether I should go for the debt finance. So these are the various decisions that you have to take as an entity before you go on raising finance. So what we are actually going to, what we will be discussing with respect to it is that we shall be discussing whether debt is a better way of financing or the equity is a better way of financing. So there are going to be multiple things that the cost of capital would be considered, various capital structure theories would be considered. So various aspects would be considered when we will be discussing this specific area. Okay, the next area is about the business valuations. I'm going to explain to you the concept of this business valuations. So what happens is whenever you acquire a business, because you see, there is something very common across the globe, and that is called the concept of acquisition. It's actually termed as acquisition and mergers. Whenever we talk about the concept of this acquisitions and mergers, so try to understand that the most important aspect of the acquisition and mergers is the valuation of the business. A very important aspect of the acquisition and mergers is the valuation of the business, because what is important is that what would be the value at which the business would be purchased, what would be the value at which the business would be purchased, and how would we be established. Basically, number one aspect is what value would you be purchasing a business, and at the same time how you would value, a business. So these are the two important things that we need to understand. So what we shall be discussing is we shall be discussing these aspects also, and that is actually going to be we'll be discussing that how do you exactly value a business and what is the valuation method that you should be using. So we'll be using various types of methods that are available for valuing a business, and those various types of methods actually include the asset-based valuation method, where you actually value the business on the basis of its asset. Those valuation methods actually include the the income-based valuation methods and also the cash flow-based valuation methods. So there are various valuation methods that are available. So what we shall be doing is we shall be discussing about these various valuation methods, that what sort of valuation methods should be used in order to value the business. So this is what we shall be discussing. This is what we shall be going through when we'll be discussing about the business valuations. Okay. And the next aspect is basically the risk management. And what exactly do you mean by the risk management? So let me try to explain to you that mainly the two types of risk that are discussed in this F9 level is the currency risk, and the other one of them is the interest rate risk. I'm going to explain to you that how the currency risk operates and how the interest rate risk operates. Here in Pakistan, a lot of the students who are doing ACCA, what actually happens is that our local currency is PKR. I would recall from my old time when I was actually doing ACCA. So when I was doing ACCA, the conversion rate of the pound sterling used to be approximately 120, 115, 116. That's what the pound sterling conversion rate used to be. So it was PKR upon the pound. That's how it used to be, 120, 115, 116. But nowadays, this rate is approximately 200. Nowadays, this rate is approximately 200. And a lot of times what happens is we have got students, like for example, if you've got a subscription to pay. Example, you've got a subscription of, let's say, I think the approximate subscription that you get in your second year is £105. So for example, if you have got a subscription to pay of £105, so at times what happens is the students, because the credit card facilities are not very easily available in Pakistan to the students. So a lot of the students, what they do is that they come to our institutions, they come to our college and they request us that we make payment for them. So usually what happens is when they come to make payment, they would we would Google out the rate which is prevalent. And let's say if the rate is, let's say, 190, so we would have some, let's say, MasterCard or the Visa card charges that are imposed. So we just charge them. And maybe there is another thing which is called withholding tax, which is prevalent in Pakistan. So we charge that thing to them. So maybe, let's say, it would become 196 or 197. That's what the rate would turn out to be. And the currency fluctuations in Pakistan are like that, that maybe if we end up paying in a day or two for that specific student, so we might actually end up seeing 210 as the rate that we are actually charged. So let me explain to you this thing, that this is something that actually happens. and this happens, what happens that in case if you are making a payment and that payment is actually done uh, after 1 or 2 days, then the pound fluctuates so much that we have collected the payment from the student at 196 rate and we end up paying at 210. So it's approximately 15 rupee a pound. So if I say, let's say, 100 pound payment, so that means 1500 is what we lose as an entity. So what I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to explain to you people that how this currency risk actually operates and what exactly is the concept of this currency risk. So when we talk about the concept of currency risk, so currency risk is basically the exchange rate will have an adverse movement. That is what a currency risk is. The exchange rate will have an adverse movement. That is what the currency risk is all about. So whenever we talk about the concept of this currency risk, so remember the currency risk is that you will have a loss because of the exchange rate's adverse movement. That's what currency risk actually means. Okay, so that's what the currency risk actually means. And let's try to discuss further. So that's one of the thing which is the currency risk. And what's the other risk that an entity faces? So let me discuss that as specific other risk also. So the other risk that an entity faces is the interest rate risk. That's the interest rate risk. Now what exactly? I'm sorry, there was an disturbance with respect to the internet connection. So let me actually discuss further. So I was talking about the interest rate risk. Now what exactly do you mean by this specific interest rate risk? Let's try to understand. Okay, now let's move a bit further. That the interest rate risk is, for example, there's a company. We are standing right now, let's say mid of April 2020. We're standing mid of April 2020. There's a company who wishes to borrow in, let's say, 3 months' time. The LIBOR, which is the London Interbank Offered Rate, I mean, it's basically the interbank rate. It's actually the interbank rate. The interbank rate right now is, assume that the interbank rate right now is 10%. And this company is facing this risk that maybe in 3 months' time when we'll be borrowing, so the interbank rate might actually go up to 12%. The interbank rate might actually go up to 12%. So if this company is facing this specific risk, so what it would actually try to do is that, it would try to enter into some sort of hedging relationship. Now, what is this hedging relationship? This hedging relationship would actually means it would find some way to protect itself. It would find some way to protect itself from the adverse movement in the interest rate. It would try to find a way to protect itself from the interest rates adverse movement. So maybe it would try to enter into some contract with any bank or any other financing institution to restrict its borrowing cost to 11.5 or let's say 11.6, etc., etc. That is what is actually going to be termed as interest rate risk management. So what is it actually going to be termed as? Interest rate risk management. So when we'll be discussing the risk management, this is what we shall be discussing, that how the entity would manage its interest rate risk and the exchange rate risk. So if I go back to this diagram, you would see that working capital management, investment appraisal, business finance, risk management, and business valuation. These are the core areas of the syllabus. And this is basically, these two chapters actually explain to you that how the organization establishes its financial management policy